1 in 4 people experience a mental health problem each year in England. And now, after a successful trial, a new treatment is being rolled out in one NHS trust. It is a headset that delivers low-level electrical pulses.
Now, it should only be used under the guidance of a doctor and is being prescribed to patients who don't respond to certain medication. Our reporter Nikki Fox explains how it works.
You open up the app and it works on Bluetooth, so it tells you to attach the pads.
Like a lot of men his age, Ashley Riley suffers from depression.
The app tells you how to line it up, which it is there. Then you press start stimulating and you're away.
But since wearing this device, his symptoms have improved.
And that's it for 30 minutes and you get a slight tingling, and I'll sit and do emails or work on my laptop, and you do that every day. The place I was in was a pretty bad place. I'd had some really bad depression and anxiety. So I tried lots of medication, I tried lots of different things. I couldn't work, couldn't interact with my family on a day-to-day basis. And so, yeah, I was pretty ill, I was pretty poorly. I've become much calmer, I take a day at a time, and I feel much more settled, and there's much more hope in my life.
He wears the device 5 times a week. It uses electrical pulses. They target a part of the front of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. It controls things like how we express emotions and can influence depression. The weak pulses aim to restore activity in that part of the brain. The NHS in Northamptonshire is helping to trial the device.
About 30 to 40% of patients with depression do not respond to antidepressants. Some people do, and for them antidepressants are appropriate. We can't just keep giving antidepressants hoping something's going to be different, because we need a different approach.
It's one of the first NHS trusts to give patients the headset. Because it can be used at home, it's cheaper than other therapies.
What would you say to people who are sceptical of this kind of alternative treatment?
What I would say is research shows, and we've known for many years, that the brain runs on electricity. That's the mother tongue. And effectively, when you look at brains of people who are depressed, there's less activity in the region associated with mood and memory. And what we're doing is targeting that region with electrical impulses to push it back to sort of a healthy state.
I'm able to be a full-time dad, which I love. I go running with my son, I'm out with my daughter. I'm able to be a proper husband to my wife. My family mean everything to me, and so to be able to be a full part of that, how I should be, is really, really important to me.
It's also being trialled in America as part of a wider study where more than half of patients showed improvements. Ashley did have counselling as well, but feels the brain stimulation has played a major part in helping him get his life back.
Nikki Fox, BBC News.
It looks incredible, doesn't it? Let's talk some more about it with psychiatrist Professor Alex O'Neill-Kerr. Good morning to you. Thank you for being with us. We got a sense there about how this works, but just remind us of it's about electrical stimulation of a certain part of the brain, and that's the bit that is so key in this.
Yeah, so we understand now that in depression, the left-hand side of the brain doesn't seem to be connected as well as it should be, and therefore it's not working as it should be. And the prefrontal cortex does what's called executive function. Executive function is decision-making, complex task activation. It's where your get up and go is. And people who are depressed just can't do anything. They want to do things, but they just can't do it. So we're stimulating on the left-hand side, and we're inhibiting on the right-hand side. The right-hand side is the non-reward pathway, and we think this part of the brain is overactive. So we bring this down, and anxiety gets better, sleep improves, and patients generally feel a lot better.
It's absolutely fascinating hearing about all of this. Why is it that this is only suitable, this treatment, for some patients?
Well, the thing that I'm really wanted to get across is that people need to understand that there are alternatives, and particularly where antidepressants don't work. I would use any of these. This one particularly is called transcranial direct current stimulation, but there's also transcranial magnetic stimulation. These are new treatments that can be used in people who are not responding to antidepressants. It's important that people know that there are other treatments for depression that can be very effective.
And now the advice, as ever, with experimental devices like this is only use it under the supervision of a doctor. I mean, what are the potential side effects or risks of treatment like this?
The risks in this particular device are low. I mean, you do feel a sort of a warm, tingly sensation. Burns have happened previously, but the machine has got a cutout switch that if the resistance increases beyond a certain point, it cuts out. Other than that, sometimes people would get a headache. It's really well tolerated. It's really got very few side effects.
We should point out that this is just one NHS trust at the moment that is rolling out these kinds of headsets. So it'll be interesting to see if other trusts follow on and take up the use of these. Is this a lifelong treatment, do you think, or ultimately will people be able to move away from this kind of treatment when they get to a sort of certain point in their recovery? And I thought it was interesting as well that the patient we were hearing from there had this alongside sort of more conventional counselling.
Yeah, so I think it's not one thing that sorts everything out. I think there are, for example, some patients may still be on medication. Some people might also still have psychological therapies. And I think these particular types of treatments work extremely well with psychological therapies. How long would you go on it is individual. Some people will go on it for a couple of months and then maybe go on to 3 times a day, 2 times a day, and then come off it altogether, go back on it if they have symptom return. The longest people have been on in terms of the studies has been about 3 years. We've just got, in terms of it going out to other trusts in the country, we've just got funding for 90 headsets. So we're now going to trial this throughout Northamptonshire. The early study was just in one particular part of Northampton. I think it's a very easy, well-tolerated. Patients love it because they can do it from home. And you can do things while you've got the machine on your head. You know, the headset, you can cook a meal, you could do your emails, you can read a book, watch TV, etc.
And given what you've said then about the ease of use and the cost implications too, how much of a game changer is it? If this trial is successful, can you imagine that this becomes a routine treatment and reduces our dependency on things like antidepressants that we know have their own side effects?
Absolutely. So antidepressants, about 70% of people respond to antidepressants. Unfortunately, there's about 30 to 40% who don't respond. For those people, antidepressants aren't going to work and they need something different. And this sort of headset and neuromodulation is the way forward. I think it's going to go into other trusts in the country because we know that what we call difficult to treat depression, that is people who don't respond to antidepressants, cost the NHS somewhere between £15,000 and £20,000 a year in treatment costs, antidepressants, seeing the GP, seeing the psychiatrist, and so on. It's really important that we have effective treatments for people and that people have choice.
It's absolutely fascinating, and thank you so much for coming on and telling us about it. And it'll be interesting to see how well this works in the particular trust that is proceeding with this. So thank you for talking to us. That is Professor Alex O'Neill Kerr from Northamptonshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust.